Would the Commander-in-Chief really veto the Defense Appropriations bill if the non-defense bills, if the caps aren't lifted on those?
Yes. And the reason for that is a serious one. There are actually several reasons. One is that the funding mechanism that Republicans have floated is one that many leading Republicans have previously described as nothing more than a gimmick. The president does not believe that is consistent with any sort of serious approach to national security. And that is the principal objection of the way that Republicans are currently trying to move this legislation through Congress. What also happens to be true is there are critically important national security priorities included on the so-called non-defense side of the ledger. This includes everything from funding for Homeland Security to funding for our veterans. So to suggest that essentially gutting funding on the non-defense side doesn't have significant consequences for our national security is dangerously naive. So the fact is the president is going to is determined to ensure that the budgets that are eventually signed into law by the President of the United States are budgets that reflect our priorities to keep the country safe and to put in place policies that are in the best interests of expanding economic opportunity for middle-class families.
And then a little bit bigger picture, wasn't it the president's idea, sort of in the first place, to want to eliminate sequestration, in his budget this year and to lift the spending caps for all of these? And then doesn't that mean he should initiate bigger budget negotiations with Congress?
Well, Cheryl, what I would point out on this is simply that the way that this was resolved previously, as you know, I know that you covered this very closely, is that we saw Paul Ryan and Patty Murray, a leading Republican in the House of Representatives, a leading Democrat in the United States Senate, sit down and work in bipartisan fashion to cobble together a bipartisan agreement to reflect the budget priorities of the country. These are priorities both related to our economy but also to our national security. We believe that that is an effective template for how this situation can be resolved now. And I recognize that raises all kinds of questions about who plays which role and how the conversations get convened and where the meetings take place and who's responsible for paying for the coffee. I get all of that. But in the same way that the White House was deeply involved in those conversations between Mr. Ryan and Senator Murray, I'm confident that the White House and the administration would be involved in facilitating future conversations because there are significant priorities involved, and in many cases the administration will have unique insight into the intricacies of these budgetary decisions. So the administration will be involved, but ultimately it's the responsibility of Congress to figure this out. And the administration will certainly be supportive of those efforts. And the last thing I would point out is something that you frequently hear from me, which is I continue to be confident that the only way that's going to get resolved is by working effectively across the aisle. That in order to get 60 votes on anything in the United States Senate, you're going to have to earn the votes of Democrats. And in order to get anything signed into law, you're going to have to earn the support of the Democratic President of the United States, who is responsible for wielding the pen. So we're going to need to see a bipartisan effort in Congress to resolve this. But again, the good news is this is one of those rare occasions where Congress has succeeded in working in bipartisan fashion to get something important done. And we're hopeful that they'll do it again.